Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson and welcome to MS Project, the course. I'm a professor of construction management and I teach MS Project all the time. In this particular setup, I'm going to try to make it so that you can follow along. I'll start off fairly basic and then we'll move from there. I've got in the description below some Google Drive links so that you can actually download the start point file for whatever video I happen to be using. This is video number 2, so I'm going to give a little bit of a review from video number 1, and then we're going to move into discussing the work breakdown structure and how we set that up. So as I said, you can download the file in the description, or if you want, you can just freeze the screen. It's fairly simple right now. It's going to get more complex as we move through this series of videos as we get more advanced. All right. One more thing I did want to say. If you click subscribe and you go to my playlist, you'll see that I have a lot of Microsoft project videos and construction related videos, because I am a professor of construction management, that can be helpful for you in your projects. All right, so let's get started. I have this layout here of a classroom remodel, all right? And so I've got a bunch of activities that I put in here, from metal studs to rough and electrical, a whole series of things. And I've got durations and I've got relationships here. So right now you'll see it says, I don't know why it says 1984. Sometimes the other thing I want to point out too is Microsoft Project can be a little bit quirky. And if you don't get used to some of its little quirks, it can make you a little bit bonkers sometimes. But I'm kind of glad that it did open in this frame, because usually it would open to around wherever I left it, but it seems to be stuck on that 1984. So I'm just going to click on this activity. Now usually too, if I click on an activity and under the task tab I go scroll to task, it will bring it up on the screen just like that. Sometimes it might get quirky and it doesn't do that. You might have to go to the minus sign down at the bottom right corner here and shrink it down before it comes into your privy or view. But this scroll to task can be really, really helpful. So if it didn't scroll to you, the practice file that I have, just click down here at the minus and see if that brings it up. Once you get it on your screen though and you're running it, then it should be fine. So I've entered a series of tasks, and this is the Gantt chart area. So I did this in detail in video 1. I'll leave a link in the description for video 1 so that you can go back to it. It should pop up on your screen perhaps at the end, but if it doesn't, I'll leave it in the description below. So we've got this series of activities, and we've said kind of the order that we want these activities to go in. So everything is numbered. So this is number 2, this is number 3. So that's basically means that activity number 2 will start after activity 3 will start after activity 2 is completed. Right now I've got a whole bunch of things starting at the same time. That's why once install metal stud partitions are done, I've got all of these activities starting. And then they're kind of going into where inspections occur, or at least 3 of them are, and we've got inspections approved. Now that's a funny shape, that's a milestone, so that's a point in time, and I go into detail in that in the previous video, so if you want more stuff on that, take a look in the description. Drywall second side, I've got drywall first side linking into that, as well as the inspections approved. I don't want to cover it in if I haven't got the inspections approved. And so then we kind of go on with tape drywall, install T-bar ceiling. We've got these 2 activities happening at the same time. Now you notice that some of the activities are red. Well, if you just typed in everything here, I'm pretty sure it won't show the red activities on your particular program. And I'm using Plan 3 of the online version. There really isn't much difference between project 2010, 13, 16, 19, and this one when you're doing basic things. So it doesn't really change till you get into more advanced things. This is the most current version. The nice thing about Plan 3, the online version, is whenever it gets updated, it's always the current version for you. But not dramatic differences, right? From 2007, yeah, that's dramatic differences. But 2010 to now, other than it is less quirky and it has more functionality. But again, there's a lot of functions in every program that you might not be interested in. Okay, So I've got this set up. Now, if I wanted to make the red disappear, I can go to where it says Gantt chart view. So I'll just go over here to view. Actually, I'm in the wrong one here. Gantt chart format. And there it is. My mouse was hiding it. Critical tasks. So I click on that. You see how the red disappeared? It came back. Disappeared, came back. And I can also do other things, like I could make the lines disappear. So I could say, I don't want to see the lines there, making it too crowded. So I could make the lines disappear. They're not gone, though. You need those lines because that is forming the critical path. That's telling you what's the longest path through this network of activities. We need to have everything connected. You shouldn't have things that are missing links. And I went through that in the previous video as well. But you want to make sure that everything is linked up and you have a complete network. Otherwise, you don't know if the timing is right. So for example, if I didn't have a link here from, let's say, this activity here, rough and electrical, that's number 3. If I take out number 3 here, right, and I just end up with 4 and 5, see how this one turned red? And this one is just hanging there. We call it open end. It's hanging. It's not connected. Well, if something changes on my project, this just goes longer. It doesn't really tell me what's going on, right? And the whole premise of scheduling software is when things change, you want to see how it impacts other things so you can make adjustments. So as we advance in this course, we'll be showing you how you set a baseline, how you update the schedule, how you recover the schedule. But fundamentally, you want to start with a good schedule that everything is connected, and this is the way you want to run your project with what you know now. And things will change. It's okay. Things will change. Things always change. Nobody comes up with a master plan that goes exactly the way that they think, right? Certain things may change in timing. You may have the sequence might have to stay the same, especially in construction. You might have, I can't put on the roof if I don't have the sheathing on, that kind of thing. But when I do it, these things may have to adjust based on weather, based on supply chain issues, based on resource availability, etc. But this is the current plan that we want. So I'm going to just undo. By the way, you can always undo your work, right? So you can always click on undo. Control Z is the nice little shortcut that you can use to undo. And it will undo what you just did unless you saved it. If you've saved it, then it won't, it'll only undo back to where you saved it, right? So that's another little tip there. So I just clicked undo, so now I've got my critical path back, I've got everything nicely connected, and I said in this particular video we were going to discuss the work breakdown structure. All right, so let's add some activities, let's flush this out in more detail, and that's very often what happens. Ideally, I would have a work breakdown structure started. Like if I'm a company, I'd probably standardize my work breakdown structures if I'm doing similar projects. Like if I'm a custom home builder, I'd have a pretty standard work breakdown structure I would use. If I build a hospital, I'd have a pretty standard work breakdown structure that I do. If my contracts are different, like in construction, we have lump sum contracts, I would have a pretty standard work breakdown structure for that, but it'd be different if it was like a design build, because now I'd have to include the whole design process. And so that would include headings and information for that. So let's do that. Let's put in here, let's say we go down for 5 rows, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to put in insert task, and I'm going to type in pre-construction. And you can follow along, especially if you use that start point file. Pre-construction, all right? And so we've got pre-construction. I'm going to put apply for permit. And then I'm going to put permit approved. And I'm going to put procurements. That's the buyouts for the contracts for the trade partners. And then I'm going to put construction. And then maybe I thought to myself, oh, I wanted to put another section in for site mobilization, all right, just before construction. So I'm going to put here maybe 3 rows, and I'm going to insert task, And I'm going to, it's like Excel, insert rows. You know, you highlight 3 rows, you'll insert it above it. The difference is it says insert task instead of row. And all I was doing was right-clicking my mouse to insert those tasks. So I've got procurements. Next, I'm going to put site mobilization. And I'm going to put in set up trailer. Maybe in this office outside, we're going to have a trailer. And we're going to have also temp washrooms. So I'm going to try to break this into the work breakdown structure here that I want, right? And we're just starting this. So I'm going to say these 3 activities I want to have under pre-construction. So under the task tab, remember the different tasks, menu items we have here. One's called task. We're going to indent, and that creates a heading. A work breakdown structures beginning, areas of work. Here, I'm going to highlight these 2. Of course, you might have a lot more than these that you'd want to include. I'm just trying to set it up so that you can sort of get the idea of it. And then, so I just scrolled down a little bit. And then under construction, I'm going to highlight everything under there. And I'm going to indent that. All right, so we've got all of these particular items in here. So we've got pre-construction, site mobilization, and construction. And I'm realizing I want to have another one, which would be closeout. It's when we finish the project. And under closeout, I'm going to put in, because it's at the end, I can just put in activities. I'm going to put in punch list. And I'm going to put commissioning. Right, so that's CMX, that would be commissioning. All right, I'm going to put finish, just to say this is when the project finishes. I'm also going to maybe under closeout, I'm going to insert above punch list another one. Maybe I'll put one called substantial completion. And so you notice where construction is, and you notice where closeout is. I'm going to highlight these 4 activities, and I'm going to indent them. Now, you can sort of see here that this is not at the same level as this. It's housed under construction. Whereas you've got pre-construction, site mobilization, construction, they're all under classroom remodel. I would actually like to have these in line with construction, site mobilization, and pre-construction. So I'm going to click on this, and to get it realigned, I'm just going to outdent it 1 level. All right, it's going to outdent it 1 level. So now these are all in alignment. That's what I'm looking for. It's a hierarchy, and what you're trying to do is break this into sections of work that make sense for your project. If this was a brand new building, you know, under construction, then I would want to break that down into more and more detail. And you'd have multiple levels that would bring that down. So right now I've got classroom remodel, I've got pre-construction, site mobilization, construction, closeout. How can we view this quickly? Well, I could click this and that rolls it up, and then I could roll that down, and I could roll this up like that. So I could get it going like that. It's a little bit time consuming to do it that way, right? Like all the time going to the different levels like that. So there is, if I go to view and I go to outline. So under outline, I can quickly say, what level do I want? I want level 1. That's level 1. I want level 2. That's level 2. I want level 3. That's level 3. If I'm worried, do I have everything open? I can always say all subtasks, and then everything will open. So that's helpful from that perspective. So I've been creating that work breakdown structure. Now, you can, under this area, then fill in your durations and the predecessors that we were talking about. So I would methodically go about filling in the durations. Remember, 0 is a milestone. And then you got to decide, again, the sequencing that you want these to go in. And probably what I would advise, maybe you have insert task. You put one called project start or start. Sometimes in construction, we will say like letter of intent, contract signed, something like that, that this is now we're beginning. And that's not bad to just put it as a milestone. Milestone is the start of something or the finish of something, but not the doing of something. I could quickly highlight these 4 activities, go to the task tab, and then I could link them one after the other. Now, what you're going to be tempted to do is to say, okay, and then when I'm done the procurements, I'm going to start site mobilization. So I'm going to put number 6 here. And it does put that heading there. And then, you know, maybe set up a trailer is 2 days and temporary washroom is 1 day. So you're going to be tempted to do that. And maybe then you're going to link those 2 together. Right? So if you link those 2, again, you can highlight them and link them. And this starts to open up that heading there, which is just these bars, and it just encompasses what's below it. But the problem is you're being very redundant here, right? Like you're connecting this, and then really that's not the way we think on a project. The way we think on a project is when I finish this, what's the next thing? And the next thing, if it's set up trailer, then I should put number 6 here. Setup trailer needs to have the procurements done. If that is true, maybe it's not true in this case, but if it's true, that's what we would have to do. So I'm going to say that best practice, and this really follows PMI standards too, is not to link to headings. The program lets you link to headings, but that doesn't mean you should do it. The program lets you do a lot of things, and there's a lot of things you shouldn't do. So keep that in mind. Now here, under construction, again, I don't want to link to the headings, so maybe once we've got all this set up, then we can start rolling. I'm going to link this to number 9 then. So it's going to move that out, right? And now you can see all of this now is on the critical path for getting the project done. Now, this, it's all back at the first day, right? So you've got to remember that you've created this heading, and the activities in it, they need to connect up because they're open right now. They're not connected, so your project's not complete. You also see that there is a question mark. That just means you haven't entered a duration. So that will follow up. Like I don't see a question mark here. I don't see a question mark there. I don't see one there. I do see here. So that's telling me on the project there's durations that you didn't actually enter. You should go source it to make sure that that's okay. And so in this case, it's not okay. I want to put 0 for this. Punch list, I want to allow 10 days. Commissioning, I want to allow 8 days. And finish is a milestone, right? So I'm starting to put that in. Now I want to roughly link these together. Sometimes I rough this out. So the nice thing is when you created a heading, then you can zoom in on that piece of work, right? The idea of creating a work breakdown structure is you don't miss stuff because you got headings that helps you to organize stuff. Because otherwise this project is so encompassing, you miss whole areas of work potentially. Also, you may need to consult different expertise to be able to do this well. So I highlight these 4 rows underneath here. I'm going to click on the link button, and that roughs it out one after the other. And I'm going to say that once we finish the install ceiling tiles, that we are going to have reached substantial completion. So I'm going to click this to number 23. I'm skipping, well, it won't let me because it's within the whole heading, but I don't want anything linking to summary tasks. And now that pushes that out over here. So now I've created this project which is flowing from here. And again, if something's off your screen that you don't see it for whatever the reason, if you click on like rough and electrical and you click scroll to task, it brings it on your screen. So you should be able to get it back that way. If it's acting quirky or something, you might have to do the minus or plus or scroll along. But generally it works fine. All right, so right now I know that our project, because the nice thing with the summary task, I can see at the heading level how we're doing. The project is going to take 130 working days from when we start to when we finish. A working day is what you've set. You know, if you work Monday to Friday, then that's working days. Saturday and Sundays, they're non-working days. It won't count those. So this is 130 working days. Usually when we're managing projects, that's what we want to know, because if we get 5 days behind, it's 5 working days. So how do we get 5 working days back? If won't count holidays, those are non-working days. And in the next video, I'll talk about calendars and how we can set up the project calendars. But for now, we've got this work breakdown structure here at the different levels, so that's pretty good. We didn't link to summary tasks. I would do a quick check to make sure that we have everything connected, as I said in the previous video, and I think I'm going to follow up with this a few times just to make sure everybody's getting it. It seems like whenever I do this with students, it takes a few times for it to really sink in. So predecessors, everything should have a predecessor except for headings and except for the first activity. So the first activity doesn't need to have, there's nothing before it, it's the first activity. Now successors, so predecessors is what happens, must happen before this happens. So it's backward looking. There is also successors, what comes after permit approved. Now when we've connected this, it has been in the background also doing the successors, because it's really which way do I look at this activity. If I'm looking at rough and electrical, what happened before it, then I can see, oh, number 11, right? So I can see what happened before it. Now the next question is what goes in front of it. And so there is a column called successors. I can insert that column. So you right click column and insert. And if you know the first letter of the name of it, you go S, and that will bring up the successor column. Now I might have to scroll down to see it. There it is. And there's the successors. So that is rough and electrical. The successor is number 16, which is inspections, right? I can see from here that the predecessor for inspections is number 12, rough and electrical, rough and plumbing, and rough and HVAC. So forward looking is successors, backward looking from the activity is predecessors. So every activity should have a successor except the last one. And I can see on this, it's pretty simple because it's not a big project. I can pretty much scroll and I can see, yeah, everything has a predecessor except the first one and the headings and the last one. But you can imagine if your project has 1,000 activities or more, that gets a little bit tricky to look at. So you can actually filter information. Now, when you filter information, I'll just warn you, you have to be a little bit careful that you remember what you filtered, because then you'll be like, where did all my information go? But to filter, I could click on successors, and I can click on that down arrow there, and I can say filters. I can click over here. I can go select all, and I can say just show me the blank ones. I only want to see the blank successor cells, and there they are. And that's the last one, so I'm good, right? So I should filter that. Now I'm going to click on that again to unfilter it. So I'm going to go click here, and then I'll just click OK. And now it's back. Now I should also do it for predecessors, because it's possible to have all your successors right, but not have a predecessor missing. So I do select all, blank, and I can see it's the start one that doesn't have a predecessor. That's correct. Now on a big project, you might have multiple levels, and the headings might bother you. You can always go to Gantt chart format where it says summary tasks and shut off the headings. So now there's my only activities, and that's good. It's the first one. I just got to remember that I shut them off, and then I can turn them back on. You'll see later on when we get into like running the schedule in a linear fashion, this is very, very helpful for us in a lot of ways. Okay, so we've got summary tasks on. I'm going to get rid of this filter. I'm just going to go here, select all, and I'm going to click OK. And now everything is back in place. If I slide to the left and I right click with my mouse, I'm going to go and slide down to network diagram. This is usually the way I switch between screens. Usually slide to the left, right click, and then I pick the screen that I want, or the table or the sheet that I want. That gives me a long list of tables and sheets that we'll talk about throughout the course. Also, up here, the square icon box that I call it, all right, square icon box, if I right click, it's got a series of different tables as well that I can scroll between. So that makes that easy. I'm just going to slide right now to the network diagram. There you go, network diagram. And while it regenerates, there we go. You can see these parallelograms. Those are the headings. Those are the headings, right? That's the work breakdown structure that we created. Closeouts down here, but they're all there. I'm going to shrink it a little bit so you can see more on your screen. And this is where I can come. I can check also if there's any open ends. These shouldn't be connected to this. They should be off to the side. And this funny shaped one is the milestone, and I can sort of follow along where the critical path is. So the work breakdown structure actually stays over to the side. Now I should remember that if I click minus, it will close those activities. Like if I click minus on some of those, it breaks that link and it's not showing me everything. So I need those to be all open in that view, right? Otherwise I might be missing information. So that's important to note. And there I can see and I can follow the project from beginning to end. I could also do a quick look. Is everything connected? If there's like a line missing somewhere, then I know that it's not connected. And I talked about that in the previous video in more detail. So it's looking good. My summary tasks are off to the left. So I'm going to go back, right click with my mouse at the left side, go to the Gantt chart, click Gantt chart. And I've got that Gantt chart view here. Now there is actually a WBS column. So to insert that, I can click on this, right click, insert column. So I right click, insert column, type W. And there's other ones for WBS predecessors, WBS successors, but this is probably the one that's most useful. This is just telling you the classification of the numbers and the level. So I can clearly see when I said there's level 1, that's level 1. This is level 2, so pre-construction, stuff under pre-construction. The activities are level 3. If I had another row of headings, you know, I could have level 4, I could have level 5, I could have level 6. Very often bigger projects, they'll have like 6 levels to them. And that's easy to do in the hierarchy. I'm keeping this one relatively simple, but you can easily have multiple levels in your work breakdown structure. Sometimes I will even color code my work breakdown structure, and you can do that by just clicking on the row, and you can say, well, what color would you like this one to be at, right? And so you can have that. What color would you like this one to be at? And maybe you want to follow the same color for the same levels, right? So you just keep it like that for the different levels, and once you've got that, you've got it done. So you can do that quite easily. Some people that use Primavera software, it kind of has the levels color coded, and so they might be used to that. It's not so quick and intuitive in Microsoft Project, but it's easy enough to structure it or set it up so you could see it that way. I'm colorblind, so it doesn't make as big a deal for me, but you can sort of see how that works. And all I did was right click, and just if I selected the row with the level, then that's there. And then when you're at the different levels, you would be able to have them all sort of lined up, right? And see it that way. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to get covered today with the work breakdown structure. Hopefully you found that to be helpful. I'm going to save this project file, and then we're going to build on it from here. So I'll do a save on this right now because this is going to be my finish point file, but I will have in the description below the start point file. You can practice on it and work on it. Best is to follow along doing the stuff as it goes, and then that way it resonates. And sometimes doing it more than once, then it really starts to sink in. When you do it more than once too, you can do it much faster the next time. So I'd strongly advise that. If you enjoyed this video, please click subscribe, and we'll see you next week. All the best. Bye for now.